The confirmed number of coronavirus cases in Los Angeles County comes to 263,333. The confirmed number of deaths reaches 6,423. Here in Torrance, the total number of confirmed cases is 1,405, with total confirmed deaths at 68. We expect the Torrance numbers to change as the county updates its last 24-hour operating period. Welcome to COVID-19 Today. I'm Christine Lee. It's 4 p.m. on Wednesday, September 23rd. The death toll in the U.S. from the coronavirus now tops 200,000, by far the highest in the world. To give you some reference, the number of deaths is equivalent to a 9/11 attack every day for 67 days. The University of Washington predicts that the U.S. toll will double to 400,000 by the end of this year. The government's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says the idea of 200,000 deaths is very sobering and in some respects stunning. This milestone report from Johns Hopkins is based on figures from state health authorities, but the real number is thought to be much higher due to gaps in testing and reporting. America has led the world in the number of confirmed infections for 5 months now, 6.9 million as of yesterday. But there's also some good news here in LA County. Public Health Director Dr. Barbara Ferrer says LA County has reduced its community transmission enough that they could be considered to enter the less restrictive tier in the state's 4-tier system. LA County's 7-day average is 7 per 100,000 residents, which is on the cusp of the red or substantial tier 2. This number must hold for at least 2 weeks before it can move into red tier. Dr. Ferrer says the Public Health Department continues to monitor the data closely, especially as hair salons reopen indoors, on-campus instruction begins at schools, and results from Labor Day activities come back. She added that they are also in discussions regarding nail salons and other sectors that may be able to reopen while still in the purple tier. Progress continues in the race for a COVID-19 vaccine. Johnson & Johnson starts phase 3 of its vaccine trial in the U.S. The first shots are expected to be administered today. This is the 4th vaccine candidate to enter the late-stage testing phase in America. The drug maker follows Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, although AstraZeneca's trial remains on pause here in the U.S. after a participant in the United Kingdom developed a spinal cord injury. What sets Johnson & Johnson's vaccine apart from its competitors is that it can be fully administered in 1 dose. Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines require 2 doses about 1 month apart. Also, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine requires basic refrigeration for storage, as opposed to more stringent requirements for Pfizer's vaccine. In terms of how many people are participating in the trial, Johnson & Johnson is aiming for 60,000 people. Moderna's target is 30,000, and Pfizer expects to sign up 44,000 participants. The Food and Drug Administration previously said a vaccine needs to protect at least 50% of people to be considered effective. The companies working towards the COVID-19 vaccine are hoping to reach 60%. Johnson & Johnson expects to release its preliminary results in late November at the earliest. Survivors of COVID-19 may face some consequences when it comes to their heart health. Emerging evidence links the coronavirus to heart damage. Cardiologists are seeing patients with signs of inflammation and scar formation in their hearts even after they recover from COVID-19. Doctors and researchers are closely monitoring the link between the coronavirus and the cardiac damage to determine what the damage will mean for patients long term. But what they do know for sure is that the virus is not just a respiratory disease and does affect more than your lungs. Young athletes are among those who should be aware of this development. Last month, several college conferences, including the Big Ten and the Pac-12, postponed their sports seasons due to coronavirus-related risks. Some physicians say a major factor in those decisions had to do with a study where people who had COVID-19 showed signs of myocarditis, which means an inflammation in the heart muscle that can weaken the organ and in rare cases lead to sudden cardiac arrest. Another recent study by the Journal of the American Medical Association found that about half of the 26 student athletes they studied who experienced mild or no symptoms from COVID-19 showed evidence of possible myocarditis or lesser abnormalities. Experts say it's crucial to find out whether the coronavirus raises the risk of heart complications in people of all ages who are even just mildly active. Medical experts say anyone who was sick with COVID-19 for 3 days or more should get a cardiac screening before doing any vigorous exercise. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg returned to the Supreme Court today for the final time. Her casket was accompanied by about 120 of her former clerks. Also among those in attendance were the justice's family and fellow members of the Supreme Court. They paid their respects in the Great Hall of the building where she served for almost 30 years. Justice Ginsburg's coffin was then brought outside where it will remain until Friday. Hundreds of mourners came to pay their respects, some coming from as far as Florida and Illinois to say their goodbyes. Chief Justice John Roberts and Rabbi Lauren Holtzblatt were the only speakers of today's simple ceremony. The rabbi called the justice a prophet and a role model. And Chief Justice Roberts recalled how Justice Ginsburg initially wanted to be an opera singer, but pursued law instead. He said, quote, "She was not an opera star, but she found her stage right behind me in our courtroom. There she won famous victories that helped move our nation closer to equal justice under law, to the extent that women are now a majority in law schools, not simply a handful. Later, she became a star on the bench." Justice Ginsburg passed away last Friday from pancreatic cancer at age 87. Her casket will be moved to the U.S. Capitol building on Friday, where she will become the first woman to lie in state there. Torrance City Manager Leroy Jackson was honored last night for his 54 years of service. The mayor and council took turns thanking him for his decades of service and reading a surprise proclamation, making September 30th, 2020 Leroy J. Jackson Day. Other city leaders called in to express their gratitude, and the council staff showed multiple letters of recognition from county and state legislators. Jackson says he was getting choked up as he shared some parting words.
Council, I thank you so much for these years you've allowed me to serve this city and for all of the opportunities open to me.
On behalf of the City Council, we wish Leroy the very best in his retirement. Presented this 22nd day of September 2020. Well, round of applause. Very
Jackson started his long career with the city in 1966 as a personnel analyst. He worked various jobs on the city manager's staff until he was appointed city manager in 1983. In his latest role, Jackson oversaw 10 departments and a population of about 145,000 people. He and his wife have called Torrance home for more than 50 years. Several more agenda items were discussed. You can catch replays of the entire meeting tonight and tomorrow. You can watch it here on City Cable, stream it online and on demand on YouTube. Governor Gavin Newsom made a major announcement today that's expected to make our state very green. He signed an executive order to eliminate the sales of internal combustion engines by 2035. That means we will move forward to a green and decarbonized vehicle fleet here in the state of California. Governor Newsom says this move will substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help improve air quality. California currently has 34 electric vehicle manufacturers representing close to $500 billion of market capitalization. Electric vehicles are the second largest export for the state. The governor says our state also represents almost half of all the electric vehicle purchases in the U.S. He says there are 726,000 of them throughout California, more than in any other state. Governor Newsom sees his executive order as an economic opportunity that can lead to accelerated innovation, entrepreneurship, and most importantly, more jobs. He says green jobs already outpace fossil fuel jobs 5-1 in our state. He believes that today's decision will substantially enhance and advance the economic competitiveness of American automobile manufacturers. The LA County Jail is starting to get overcrowded again. There was previously a COVID-related push to drop its population by about 5,000 inmates. It was an effort made to help prevent the spread of the coronavirus. But a recent report on the county's website shows that the number of prisoners went up by almost 15%. The countywide jail population in late August was more than 13,200. That's 1,500 more than just a few months ago. The increase is partially due to restrictions that were previously in place due to the pandemic. Transfers of thousands of people to state hospitals or state prisons were delayed. In May, 121 inmates were moved to San Quentin. Officials believe that could have led to an outbreak that infected more than 2,200 inmates in the Bay Area and killed more than 24 inmates and employees. LA County Jail's current population of more than 13,200 puts it over the state rate capacity of 12,404. The LA Police Department and the LA County Sheriff's Department noted that crimes that dropped sharply during the early months of the pandemic are starting to pick up again. They include violent crimes and could be due to some public restrictions lifting as the number of COVID-19 infections continue to go down. We now have just 1 week left to fill out the 2020 census. To help more people's voices be heard, census takers are heading out to the streets to assist one of the most difficult populations to count, the homeless. Census workers plan to visit shelters, soup kitchens, and other areas where the people experiencing homelessness are likely to be. The workers will also make overnight visits to homeless encampments, including those at transit stations and under bridges. This is one of the most difficult logistical operations the U.S. Census Bureau undertakes. About 49,000 locations have been identified across the country. That includes more than 33,000 outdoor encampments, close to 10,000 shelters, and about 5,000 soup kitchens. The Bureau says they're making every effort to make sure no one is left out of the count. Some homeless advocates are concerned that the census won't get an accurate count of the population since the warm weather tends to disperse individuals and most shelters are operating at a fraction of what they're used to due to coronavirus precautions. Meanwhile, census workers are continuing to knock on doors of homes where residents have not yet filled out the census. The 2020 census helps determine $1.5 trillion in annual federal spending. It also helps determine how many congressional seats each state gets. Field operations for the 2020 census are set to end on September 30th, the last official day for everyone to respond. Disneyland demands that Governor Gavin Newsom allow them to reopen after being shut down for more than half a year. Disney Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro gave a news conference from inside the iconic park. He says, quote, "We're ready and it's time." California's major theme parks all closed in mid-March due to the coronavirus pandemic. Governor Newsom has said that an announcement on their reopening guidelines is coming very shortly. The Disney Parks chief pleaded with the state and local government officials to give Disneyland and Disney California Adventure the green light to reopen now. He says they need guidelines that are fair and equitable and urged government officials to give theme parks the same treatment as other industries that have successfully reopened. D'Amaro says close to 80,000 regional jobs rely on the Disneyland resort, and the longer they wait, the more devastating the impact will be for Orange County. Disney officials pointed out the success of other Disney theme parks in China, Florida, France, and Japan. They even offered to assist government officials in crafting the necessary health and safety guidelines. California theme parks already proposed implementing a number of new safety protocols, including contactless payments, mandatory masks, and reducing attraction capacity. UC Irvine takes new steps to help minimize the spread of the coronavirus. Every student who is staying on campus must get tested every week for COVID-19. The university released an animated video showing the process of a supervised self-swab. About 3,600 students already live in campus accommodations, and another 3,500 are expected to be moving in by the end of the month. The school's recently launched coronavirus testing program makes sure every student gets tested before school starts. University officials plan to require weekly testing after that. Dr. Albert Chang, the medical director of UCI's Student Health Center, says their goal is to protect the health and well-being of their campus. He adds that for some students, the UCI campus is the safest or most practical place for them to be during this time. The university also launched a video series called Anteater Insider Live about a month ago. During the roughly half-hour episodes, experts address concerns or questions relating to the pandemic. UCI's fall quarter starts on October 1st, and the majority of classes will be taught remotely. The cast of Hamilton wants you to vote. The wildly popular musical stars joined forces with other A-listers to get more people to take part in this year's election.
Your lack of voting is making the difference in this election.
It's hurting. It's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I know that
the former First Lady Michelle Obama and the nonprofit group When We All Vote hosted this virtual voter turnout event. You can watch the nearly 8.5-hour video online, but a highlight was when Hamilton creator Lin-Manuel Miranda repurposed some of the songs from his musical with new lyrics that promote voting.
Our nation is asking to hear your voice. Oh! 'Cause November is coming and so is the joy. Oh! Now I've said this before and it matters a lot. Oh! Do not throw away your shot. Vote! I know it takes time, it's a sacrifice.
Miranda and about a dozen of his cast members participated in this campaign. Like he said, don't forget to register to vote. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Well, before we go, at the end of each program, we like to share stories from our community, feel-good pictures, images, and videos that remind us of how resilient our community is and how Torrance truly cares. A small business in Torrance played a big role in helping firefighters battle wildfires in California. IntelliSense Systems Incorporated manufactures small, portable, and rugged weather sensors that can be placed along the fire line and report conditions to first responders. During the last record-setting wildfire season, the company loaned several of their patented micro-weather sensors to CAL FIRE. It allowed the firefighters to detect hotspots and helped with their operations. IntelliSense officials say they're now developing an all-in-one fire weather sensing system after receiving feedback from the first responders. The new device will report dangerous weather conditions that could lead to a wildfire. They could also be placed in remote locations to monitor and alert if conditions turn critical. What a great way to team up with our heroes and support their work in this innovative way. Now, if you have a great story to share, be sure to email us at covid19today@torranceca.gov. We'd love to hear from you. Well, that's our update for COVID-19 today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow as Ben McCain brings you the latest updates. Be safe, stay healthy, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.